All right, well, welcome back. This is Queens of the Paddock, an F1 podcast. My name is Alex.
And I'm Courtney.
And we have a lot to talk about today.
Yeah, a lot has kind of happened, I feel like, in the last week with like F1 news, Drive to Survive has come out, we've had season testing, and next week is the start of the season.
It's lights out and away we go. I know, we're so excited. It doesn't seem like that long has gone by.
But it feels like a lifetime.
I know. I was watching some of the testing stuff and I was like, oh my God, this is so exciting. And I was like, oh, I feel like we were just here. But but no, it has been. It's been like 3 months.
I know.
God, so excited. So excited.
Okay.
But
do you want to start out with some of the news that's kind of transpired in the last week, I would say?
So I want to start out with Ferrari has a new strategist.
Yes.
So excited about this. I think it's going to be,
works out.
I know, I'm like crossing fingers, toes, everything.
Mm-hmm.
So his name is Ravin Jain.
Jane.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Hopefully I am. So he is 26 years old.
Oh, so he's young. Okay.
He's young. And I think that's the key here. Mm-hmm. We need like fresh thoughts, young thinking. And let me tell you, these like young people that are coming up right now, they're smart.
Well, I was going to say they're whippersnappers.
Yeah, for sure.
A whippersnapper.
That's so funny you say whippersnapper because when I was watching the testing, like the announcers, they were referring to like all the rookies as young whippersnappers.
Oh gosh.
I feel like it's a very like British.
My dad says he calls people, like, oh, that young whippersnapper. Like,
But they are because they're smart and they're quick.
They're quick.
I think that's the key. So really excited about that.
Ooh, okay.
He graduated from Oxford. Apparently he's like super smart. We're excited. He's been with them actually since like 2015 or 2016.
Okay.
In like more junior roles.
Okay.
But yeah, so now he's gonna be taking over.
I guess next week will be the true test. But remember, we are going for Max.
Yes, we want Max to win.
Next weekend only.
For sure.
So
for sure.
Well, that's exciting.
But yeah, so that was exciting.
And then kind of some not so, I guess not exciting, but more on the like negative side with Lance.
Oh yeah. So
there's a lot going on there. I feel.
I know. So we hope he is better soon.
Yeah.
But he broke both of his wrists.
I know, and that's what I'm like. If they think only 2 weeks is like what's going to do it, I'm like, I mean.
That's because think about how much you're having to use your wrist.
Well, I'm talking about the G-force of it.
True.
Your wrist, and then also like your fingers should change all of the controls.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That seems like I just don't think he's going to... Well, they've already said that... Well, they haven't confirmed that Felipe Drogovic will be driving for him next weekend.
That's kind of what they're thinking.
Yeah, that's kind of what they're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And then, too, I was listening to people like talk about this and... They were saying that like MotoGP people that's like a frequent thing that happens. They'll break their wrists because they're using them so much and they will get back on the motorcycle like 3 days later. And I'm like, there is no way.
Okay. I guess we'll see.
I don't know. And so rumor has it that he was seen by like one of the really prestigious MotoGP doctors that like takes care of all those people.
Well, I mean, I don't doubt it.
Yeah, and so maybe he'll be able to work some miracle stuff, but I just like don't think that's possible.
And then the question is going to be, even if he does come back, how is that really going to affect his performance on the track? Right. So to be determined. To be determined. But I would say those were probably the two big things that kind of happened in the F1 world news-wise this week, which kind of is a big deal.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, those are two huge things. So, but okay, so Courtney had said like there's a lot of stuff that's been going on this week. So we had Drive to Survive.
Yes.
So we're going to talk about our thoughts on Drive to Survive.
And we both definitely have binged it.
Yes.
Since Friday's release.
We've watched all 10 episodes. Yep. Very dedicated, spent a lot of time doing that. And then also season testing. So that is just completed. So we have some findings from that. And then we're going to do some season predictions. Yep. What we think is going to happen. So a lot of stuff to cover. Super excited. So much stuff is going on.
Well, then let's jump in with Drive to Survive.
Yeah. So overall, give me like what your thoughts were.
Overall, I think it was good. I definitely liked it. I don't know if I necessarily liked the way they did the order of things. Like it was like they would follow one team ish, two teams through like 3 or 4 races, and then they would like go backwards again, and then do the same thing. And I kind of was like, I think I wish I would have been like, why don't you just take those pieces from each of the teams and kind of flow through the season? Because it got a little confusing. Yeah. And you found out things earlier.
Right.
Than I think I would have wanted to know.
Yeah.
If you were really paying attention.
I agree. And it's like, it's very disjointed, but I feel like they've done that like the other seasons too. But it seemed more disjointed this season, I felt like. And there was a lot of stuff that to me was a little bit repetitive, like the whole like the Silverstone crash.
Yes. Like, but then did you notice that Alfa Romeo was the only team that was not featured? Really?
I know.
Except for the crash.
Except for that crash, they had a little tiny blip from Zhou after, and then I don't think we even got like any Bottas.
No.
At any point, like a sit down Bottas. No Latifi. There was hardly. Was there any Albon? I don't think there was any Albon.
Yeah.
It seemed to me, okay, so...
It's like they're almost... they moved away from truly following the entire grid to going towards, like, who are the big key players.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, I felt that too. And I think it has a big part of that is that Max wasn't involved, like, the past, I think, 2 seasons. He said he didn't want to do it. And so they couldn't like get any airtime with him. And then this season, he obviously like agreed to be in it.
Yeah.
But he was very strict on like what was shown about him, and he wanted to have control of like that narrative. Because he felt like the first couple seasons when he was featured that they kind of made him out to be like a villain.
But he kind of is
But he kind of is. And so now like he was heavily featured in this season. But I felt like there was so much that I was like, okay, you didn't even like none of I'm sorry if this is spoiler alerts for people, but the fact that they didn't even touch the whole Max and Checo situation in Brazil was wild to me.
Oh, I was like, that is
the drama that we came for, Netflix.
Well, not even the drama, but like that was
a huge thing
piece of the number 2 in the Drivers' Championship.
Right.
That was a huge reason why Checo did not get it.
Right.
So I feel like how can you not talk about that when that was a huge component of who ended, like how Charles ended up,
how the season ended.
Yeah,
I know. I was like, I stayed like waiting, and I was like, they're not gonna touch on that.
I mean, even if you didn't touch on, if you didn't show the radio thing, and if you didn't touch on like his mom and all of that drama, you still should have shown more of the Brazil race,
right? To
show when Charles kind of made that like push past. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Okay, and so another thing too was, so like one of the first, okay, so hold on, I have my notes here. One of the first, I think, few episodes was focused more on like Ferrari, and we got a lot of Charles, we got a lot of Carlos, and they started talking about all of the issues that Ferrari was having.
Yes.
And during that episode, we did not get the France like Grand Prix where he ran into the wall with the whole no, like that whole thing. We didn't get it, and I was like, oh, thank God. Like, but I don't have to relive that.
There was a little clip of it where, like, I think later in the season, when it was like showing the bubbling and like the building up of Ferrari's like
all
kind
their
of
issues.
Meltdown. Yeah, exactly.
And they did end up showing it, and I was like,
but just that one clip.
Yeah, it made me real sad though. I was like, man, I thought we were gonna get away without having to relive that, but we did. They forced us.
The other thing I really want to touch on, though, is the Tokyo race.
Yeah.
I was so glad that they really highlighted all of the drivers' opinions on, like, how dangerous that race was. Like, the fact that they didn't red flag or delay the race is crazy. Beyond me. I mean, like, if you saw the videos of it, I mean, every single driver was just like, there's no visibility. And then you see signs crash. And then you see somebody like clip him or almost
I think it was Gasly when he got that sign stuck. But you know what they didn't cover, which like they did cover that, but they didn't talk about when the tractor was on the track. I thought that was huge like to discuss and talk about, and they didn't really touch it.
Well, especially because the drivers were so opinionated on that.
After that. Oh, yeah. And we didn't get any of the, like, when Pierre was so mad about that. And, like, there was clips of him, like, you had no audio because it was, like, from far away, but clips of him, and they didn't show this in Drive to Survive, like, basically yelling and screaming and, like, carrying on. And, like, that's what I feel like Drive to Survive is there for, to like give me like what was that audio, like I want to know what he was saying. Well, clearly he was mad.
Well, yeah, but it gives you an insight to what the drivers are really like, thinking and feeling, right? Like we all have our opinions from the outside, like just like the announcers, right? But like give us what they really think and feel, right? You know,
totally.
So
one thing I do want to call out is that Luisa, Lando's ex, was shown like a few times.
Multiple times. They were too lovey-dovey for me.
And I thought they were like teeing it up to talk about in Sanford McDonald's Gate. Like I was like, oh my God, are they going to give us McDonald's Gate?
There's no
And
way.
then they didn't.
No.
Like they showed him with his girlfriend, and he even had like a little sit down. He was like, yeah, I have a girlfriend now.
Yeah.
And whatever. And I was like, oh my God, they're teeing it up. Like we're going to get the backstory of like what happened. And then we didn't.
And I just thought they were, I thought that was a little too much for me. Like, it was like unnecessary.
It was kind of, because like if you're not going to go really deep into their personal
life,
into their personal lives, then like don't even like, why are you giving me that detail? Seems kind of like
they were very high schoolish to me also.
Yeah.
Like the hand holding. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think
and
it's
he was
fine.
Like, babe, close the door, babe.
Your door's open, babe.
Oh my God. It was cute. Okay. Another thing I want to talk about is Toto and Susie doing like a class at Harvard. And I was like, what is this class? Like they were speakers.
Yeah, that looks so cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. I would have loved to have had that in like a business class. Oh my gosh.
You know, the other thing, and I'm sorry we're jumping around.
Yeah, we're just jumping around. Yeah.
Is okay, so when I want to get to silly season.
Yeah.
Because that was a big part.
That was huge.
Of the season this year, right? First of all, we firsthand got to really see the mess that Alpine and McLaren and Aston Martin,
all these teams,
of them like kind of dealt with, right? First of all, I didn't realize with Alonso, I did not realize how salty.
Oh, I know.
Was. Like in the news,
they kind of, it was kind of like he just made this call, he was going to go over there, whatever. But like we did get a lot of back kind of like behind the scenes view of that, which I thought was really good drama.
Oh yeah. And not like, first of all, we already said like, I think Alpine just kind of with Nick and all, or not, it wasn't Nick, it was,
Oscar. With Oscar.
Okay, so first of all, we thought like, okay, they got caught with their pants down on Oscar, right? But then not only Oscar, then now Alonso.
Yeah.
I don't even think I realized in the midst of all of that how much like they just look like complete fools.
I know.
Like it was so bad.
Yeah. And I thought it was crazy that we got the behind the scenes of that whole situation with like Otmar going and seeing Zach Brown, and he was like, "We're gonna sue this and that," and I was like,
"Case in the UK," and I was just like, "What is going on?"
Yeah, but then too, I was like, I thought it was crazy that they showed Zach Brown going and talking to the CEO of Alpine and trying to convince him to take Daniel as like a driver swap.
Yeah. Well,
which I don't think we knew that like it was kind of talked about that was like obviously a potential thing.
Option.
Right. But I don't think that we ever knew that like that happened.
Yeah. No, I agree. And then in the midst of silly season, Daniel's video, which was crazy atrocious to me. I mean, like, you could tell he was so uncomfortable in that video.
Was totally.
And it was like he was forced to do it. It's in black and white.
Yeah, he's like against, so it looked like a prison hostage video.
Exactly.
Like somebody pleading, like, please pay the ransom, like, I need help. Yeah, and what was crazy to me about that was that, like, McLaren, like you said, forced him to do it because the McLaren like media communications director person was like, okay, his video is going to come out at 2:55. Like they were like in on it. And I remember watching that video and being like, oh my God, this is awkward and sad.
It was. And you could tell like he was holding back a lot of emotion.
Yeah.
But also in the midst of all of that, I don't think I also realized was that they were paying Daniel out of his contract. They're bringing Oscar over, and potentially they're going to have to pay Alpine. I think it was like $5 million.
Yeah,
and
Otmar kept saying that they added it up, and it was $5 million.
Yeah, like $5 million, and like I don't even know what it is, but essentially like already incurred expenses or something on like that on Oscar. And so I'm just sitting here, and I'm just like, how does all of this play into your cost cap for, is it this year or next year or
I think cost cap too doesn't include like driver salaries.
But it does include catering.
It does include catering.
That was the...
that was the whole cost cap conversation. And, like, that was, like, a whole episode for the Red Bull cost cap situation.
Yeah, but it was funny to me a little bit because it was, like, Toto and Zach and everyone is, like, on the grid or in the paddock, like, oh, my gosh, they overspent by so much and all this drama. And I'm just sitting here and then they're all talking and it's like, well, you know, catering needs to be part of the cost cap budget. I'm like, wait.
That is though, I think.
I know, but I'm like sitting here and I'm like, we're fighting over catering
costs. Well, and then somebody made the comment of like that amount of money is not just extra pickles on a sandwich.
But in my head, also, I'm just like, what? Like, okay, and also at the same time, I'm like, does catering really need to be part of the cost cap?
I think the cost cap should only include like what you're putting into the car and like equipment and stuff like that you're investing into the car and doing research and R&D and whatever. Like I think that should all be part of it.
But I think the reason why the FIA has included it is because it's like all the luxuries, right? Like how do you entice drivers to come to your team?
True,
you know?
That's true.
So, side note, and I do want to bring this up. So, other news in F1 is that Haas, with their cost cap this year, has now their pit wall. I guess I don't even.
Yeah, their pit wall.
Their pit wall set up, right? Yeah. I think they had 6 spots before with all these screens. They are now going to go down to 3 spots, and it's going to save them $250,000 this year, so that they can invest it back into the car,
which I think is great.
I do too.
I love that, and at first it cracked me up because they were showing people like pictures of like everyone else's pit wall, and it's like this huge thing, and like all this equipment and stuff, and then they showed Haas's, and it looks like a little like closet, like it's like tiny. But then I heard about the savings that is bringing to them, and it's savings from having to ship it, like logistics costs. All of that, which is saving them so much money. And then you think about like, that's crazy that it's that much money. And then also too, like they don't need it because if you look at the rate, like during the race weekends, there's only a few people out there and most of the people are in the garage.
Well, and think about Mercedes.
Yeah.
Toto is a like prime example of a successful CEO principal and runs his team, and he runs his team from inside the garage.
Yeah, he's never out there.
He's never on the pit wall.
Right.
I mean, I think I've seen him maybe
a couple times,
but most of the time he's in the garage.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, again, you have to start thinking, what's the important place to spend 100%. Your money?
Yeah.
So maybe Haas, I don't know.
I think that's, and we'll talk some more about that during the preseason testing, but I think that was a really smart move on their part.
Start
I'd love
being
to
competitive.
See it. Don't worry about all this extra stuff. Okay, but going back to this cost cap episode on Red Bull, they show, and I don't know if you caught this, but they showed a clip from Austin when the drivers came out onto the stage, and Christian was like showing it to somebody on his phone, and he was like, look at this, like we're getting eaten alive. And so like Checo and Max come out onto that stage, and the crowd is like, cheaters, which like, that was fake. Y'all, I'm here to tell you, Courtney and I were sitting in that crowd.
Were they showing when it was in the amphitheater?
Yes.
No one was yelling cheaters.
Nobody was yelling cheaters. We were in that crowd. We were there live, in real life, in person.
You might have had maybe like one or two people maybe that said that, but like not enough to where the crowd is like,
yes, that was enough. Totally dubbed over. I am here to tell you, you heard it here first. Drive to Survive is dramatized. Not that we didn't already all know this.
Christian is dramatizing.
Yeah, true. But like they had that little clip and he was showing it. He was like, oh, we're getting eaten alive out here. And it's like, you could tell that it's fake too. Like it sounds totally dubbed over. And I even went back and looked at the videos on my phone from when we were there.
Yeah, because you took a lot of Ferrari Red Bull.
Yes, I had all the videos. Yeah. And I like listened, I put it real loud and I was like, nope, nobody's yelling cheaters. They're all just excited that they're on the stage.
Yeah. That's hilarious.
Oh my God. I was sitting like watching that on my couch and I was like, that's fake. That's fake. I was there. Didn't happen.
Oh,
they lied. Hilarious. So anyways, had to talk about that.
But at the same time, on the flip side of all of this, right? Like I do understand why Toto and Zach and everyone was going after them because it's coming off as like there's no regard for the cat. There needs to be, some type of punishment and showing them that like, no, this matters. Like these are the rules. Like you have to follow the rules. And like, I think if they do it again, I think it needs to be like a points penalty.
Oh yeah. Well, it'll be really interesting to see because like that cost cap penalty was from 2021.
Yes.
Right. So like now when they do all their accounting and like do all of that, calculation and checking into it for 2022, like, are we going to get more people or is Red Bull again going to have issues?
I don't know.
But like you said, I think it should be like, okay, so they had their wind tunnel time kind of taken away. Not all of it, but I think they had to reduce it by 10% was one of the penalties. But like if that happens to them again, I think that it should be like...
Oh, the FIA is going to come down on them.
Yeah.
I think, because it's going to be like, okay, the first time you got like kind of a hand slap, a smaller, punishment. But for a second offender, I think they're going to be like,
Yeah.
If they don't, I think Toto, everyone.
Oh, they'll lose it. They'll lose it.
Actually, you know what? I wonder if it happens again, could Ferrari use their
veto thing?
Their veto.
I don't know. I think it only relates to like regulations.
Yeah, but the regulations say that there's a cost cap.
Right. True.
I wonder, or maybe they don't use their veto power, but maybe they use their just power
in general.
To be like, come on.
This is not okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Okay, another thing too, at the last episode, whenever they're talking about like, it was mainly about Daniel leaving. They did not mention Seb retiring.
No, they didn't. Now that I think about it,
they didn't.
That's kind of
and I was like, he was
in my opinion,
big part of the sport.
Yeah. Actually, now
they didn't mention it. Said that. They didn't mention it at all, and they didn't really we didn't get a lot of Seb content in general.
Well, we didn't get a lot of Aston Martin except for the Coda accident that Lance was involved.
Yeah, with Fernando. Yeah, I don't know. I thought that was a miss.
He's been through. He drove for Ferrari.
Yeah, he's a huge part of the sport. It's like
now I'm a little
world champion. You know, I can understand. They didn't say anything about Latifi leaving. It's fine.
Still.
But it was I think because Daniel was so huge on Drive to Survive, they had this whole, montage of, what he has done over the seasons and, all this stuff. And I don't know. I thought they should have done something for Seb.
Yeah.
No,
I agree with that. Overall, it was really good. I love Drive to Survive. I think Toto was hilarious. Where they were at the beginning, he was like, "This isn't a documentary. It's
more like Top Gun."
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, there was really good clips from. I feel like all the principals. I think overall they did a really good job of showing the story about the teams. I definitely, like I said in the beginning, I mean, I think it's a little ridiculous they didn't get all the teams.
Yeah.
I definitely think they need to kind of, maybe not equal parts, but that's the point of the show.
Well, and you would think there's opportunity there to cover each team because there's 10 episodes and there's 10 teams.
Or if you need more, then make them longer.
Yeah.
They were only 30, 40?
Yeah, they were between 30. I think the longest one was 50 minutes.
Yeah. So, I mean, just make it a full hour.
And cover it. I mean, people want the information.
The only other thing I want to touch on is Yuki.
Okay. What? Yeah. So, I made a note about, because there was an episode that was it started out and they were kind of focusing in on Yuki. It was that episode they were in Suzuka.
Yeah.
And they showed Yuki and Pierre in the car driving, and Yuki farted on camera.
I didn't even catch that.
Oh my gosh, yes. And Pierre was like, "Oh my god, lower the window." It was funny. Typical Yuki.
I feel like they made Yuki out to be a little bit a little incompetent. A tad bit.
They didn't give him a good edit.
No, it's almost like they were Yuki's going to do nothing without Pierre, and maybe he won't. I don't know. I mean, I think this is a very important year for Yuki.
100%.
I think if he doesn't produce, he's gonna be gone, and I don't know if there's anyone else on the grid that's willing to go with him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's too many young whippersnappers.
Too many young whippersnappers.
that are coming up that they can go to. I think this is going to be an interesting year. And I think he's going to be, to be honest, I think he's going to struggle with Nick.
Yeah.
I think Nick is very, very focused and he's won Formula E.
Yeah.
I mean.
I know he's going to have to get it together. Like you said, there was a lot of talk about that and how Yuki has to, he's been on the team for 3 years. So he's the more experienced driver on this team, quote unquote. But you have Nick, who's experienced just in racing in general.
And he seems to have a better headspace than Yuki does.
Well, he's definitely more mature. Like you said, he's more focused. He's professional about it. And he takes it very seriously. And I think Yuki's still I'm just having a good time.
Yeah, the 18-year-old teenage boy that's living his dream.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Okay, so let's move into season testing.
So let's move into season testing. Yeah.
Transition.
Yeah. Okay, so just in general, season test. This is the first season testing that I am fully watching.
Yes.
As an F1 fan. And so there was a lot of stuff for me that I was like, oh my God, I've never, what is that? What's going on? So all of the aero rakes that they put on the cars.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. I was I don't fully understand that. Cause again, I'm like Alex.
Yeah.
I think this is 100%.
We're budding here. We're new.
No, we're what's it like? Coming out of our cocoon.
Yes. We're coming out of the cocoon. We're trying to become little F1 butterflies. But okay, so the aero rakes, and they kind of almost look like a fence.
Yeah.
Like on top, like kind of attached to the car. And the first time I saw it, I was like, that is so strange. Like, what is going on there? So what it has is there's a ton, like hundreds of little sensors on those like aero rakes things.
Okay.
And they put them on the front, or they'll put them on the back, or sometimes both. And they kind of just use that as the car is driving to see how the air is flowing over the car.
Okay.
So all of those sensors will create basically like images that all the aerodynamicists people, yes, points. It's data collection. Yeah. So that's what they're doing. And like mainly the first day and like pretty much the morning of the second day, you saw a lot of the cars driving around with these aero rakes on, just trying to gather information on like how the air is running. And that just goes back to all of the engineer people and the aerodynamics people trying to see, you know, what kind of setups can they change.
Yeah. Are we going to have porpoising issues? Are we not?
Yeah. And it's all
do I have enough downforce?
Right. It's all just like, so they can gather that information and do like tests on like, is what I was expecting to happening, basically. And one of the announcers, which I thought this was a really good analogy, it's almost like a science test.
Oh, okay.
Like, so you have your hypothesis, I can't say that word, and then like you run your test, you know, to see what goes on, and then you have to figure out if those two line out.
Yeah.
So anyway, so they use that a lot, and then they also use FlowViz, which is that like neon paint that you see on some of the cars. Most of the teams use like a green, but I saw some people using blue, like even like a reddish color. But anyways, it's kind of the same idea. So they paint this FlowViz on the car, and then as the paint dries, you can see like how the air is running.
It's like, okay, as it's running. Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah. So I thought that was really cool.
It's more of a visual,
right?
Look of it rather than just like
the sensors and the data points.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. So we saw a lot of that, and again, mainly on like the first and second days when they're really just running their like pure test runs to see, and then half of the second day and then the third day were mainly they're actually running like race runs. They're doing practice qualifying laps. They're doing practice starts, like different things like that. And then this was really cool. On the evening of the third day, they did like a practice, like a little race almost, like a little mock race.
Like kind of like a sprint race?
Yeah, kind of like a little, like it was just like a little practice sprint race. And the purpose of doing that is so like they can test all of the safety things, like if there were to have been a crash, like the people can like test to see how that works and all of that. But it was fun. Crashes? No. I mean, I say that in like a sad voice.
No, but it's still like, you know, it would have played into things.
Right.
You know?
But okay, so another thing I thought was interesting that I didn't know is none of the power units can be changed until 2026 because they have these new power unit regulations coming in 2026.
Okay.
So they put a freeze on any kind of engine like development.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. So you can change your power unit if you have problems with it.
Right.
But you cannot redesign your power unit.
That's right. So the teams that were able to do anything to their power unit for before this next season is anything Ferrari powered. So Ferrari, Haas, Alfa Romeo.
Yeah.
And then anything Mercedes powered, which I didn't really feel like Mercedes had a lot of reliability issues last year.
No,
but
they didn't. Not really.
I don't know. I guess maybe because like Aston Martin and McLaren are also Mercedes power unit people, and so they had some more issues.
Yeah.
So they were allowed to change things. And then Renault, which is Alpine. So
okay, so they were allowed to make adjustments,
make changes to the engine power unit. So
pretty much everybody except for Red Bull, right? I don't think anyone else is using Haas's, right? Or not Haas,
Hondas. No, it's just them.
Okay. We'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, so we'll see. I think, there wasn't a whole lot of, for any of those people, we'll get into that. There was some people that had engine reliability issues during testing, but it wasn't as much as what we saw last year.
Okay, so who was it?
So, okay, wait, before I get into that, there's also new tires from Pirelli.
Which we knew that because in COTA,
they were testing them.
Testing all the tires, yeah.
So now there's going to be 6 different compounds.
Okay.
And it goes from C0 to C5. And then they also made changes to the wet tires.
Okay.
So that they don't have as much spray.
Oh, that will be...
Yeah, so that'll be great. I mean, especially during these rain, wet races. It'll be interesting to see.
And with the tires, isn't this the year that they're making the change of no tire blanket?
So it's not fully yet this year, but they have said that the tire blankets cannot exceed 70 degrees.
Okay.
Which I think 110 is where you want the tire to kind of be warmed up to. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how I feel about this regulation. I think it's kind of dumb. Why? Why is that a problem?
I don't know. Maybe it's to get it back to the true integrity of getting the tires warmed up on their own on the track.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to artificially
warm them up. Mm-hmm. So, and I think too, some of the argument for people that don't want the tire blankets is they're not how do you really regulate that temperature?
I was just about to say
so that. They could be basically smoking them, to get them real hot. And then some of the other teams are okay, yeah, we're going to put them at 90 or whatever.
Yeah, that is true.
And then, so that's kind of an unfair advantage.
Yeah. Cause every single time, I mean, you would have to have somebody there, literally with a heat gun.
Yeah. Right. Temping them.
That's what I think.
Yeah, maybe that's
back
true.
To the regulation or the integrity of the sport, right? Maybe you just don't even have heated ones. You can have a blanket, maybe back in the old school days, but just they're not heated,
right? So I don't know. I mean, to me, it's once they get on the track, that's going to be difficult for the drivers to heat those up. So maybe that'll make things more exciting.
That's what I like. Again, I think they're trying to take away some of this artificially.
Yeah.
Inserted things to just bring it back to,
pure,
put your car on the track, see what your driver can do. Because also some drivers are better at warming their tires up than others.
That is true.
Know what I mean? And so
that would make it a little bit more interesting.
Yeah.
Actually. Well, we shall see. Okay. And then my other thought that I wanted to talk about was, the cars were actually pretty easy to tell apart on the track. Yeah.
Considering we, in our last episode, we were
real concerned
on the
cars. And they were easy to tell apart. Yeah. I was okay, they look different. It's fine.
Yeah.
But so, I just wanted to call that out. So I think what I'm going to do is just go through each team and then kind of talk about what happened during testing for them. So
you got a rapid fire out.
I know. Starting out with Red Bull. They were the clear favorites again, throughout the weekend, or I guess 3 days of testing. Max started to do the runs, and he was the first day he drove all day, and then he was supposed to drive in the morning on the second day, and then Checo was going to do the afternoon, and then the last day. Yeah. And they swapped that around, and they didn't really say why. But they ended up putting Checo in the morning on the second day, then Max in the evening, and then Checo all day on the third day.
Yeah.
So that first run, when Checo came out, Max had dominated the first day, in as far as track time.
Yeah.
And then Checo came out in the morning on the second day, and he was nowhere near where Max was. And I was oh no. Ooh. This is not good. But then again, it's it's testing, so you can't really read too much into...
Well, and they don't all want to put all their cards out on the table.
True.
And Toto even brought that up.
Yeah.
In Drive to Survive. It's it's a game of cat and mouse.
Right.
You want to test as much as you can, but you also don't want to go full
This is
out.
What I'm working with. And then everyone knows.
Yes.
Yeah. So, but then... he came out on the third day and he drove all day and he had the quickest time of the whole testing weekend.
So maybe he just needed to get back in his groove a little bit.
And I think too, it's I think it has more to do with the different kind of runs they were doing on that morning. You know, they might have not been doing a qualifying lap run. Like they were just doing other stuff. And then two, all of the announcers and everybody commentary was saying the third day is the best day to drive because that track has it hasn't been run on in months and how long.
They have all the...
There's rubber laid down. Yes. So it always improves as you get further into that whole thing. But so basically, again, they were basically the clear favorites. Everyone was okay, yeah, they're still on top of their game. Everything's looking good. It was good. They looked good still.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Who's next on our list?
Ferrari.
Ooh.
Yeah. So they looked good overall.
Okay.
But not anything crazy. And then that led to a lot of people talking about how they think that they're holding back.
Yes. Yeah.
Performance and holding back.
I'm curious to see if they dominated last year's testing. I don't really know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah.
They had this was on the internet a lot. They had there was a dimple in the nose cone whenever they started driving, and with the downforce and all the G forces, I guess, on that piece of plastic that's on the nose cone, it was inverting in. Mm-hmm. And people were is that some kind of strategy thing? Is that some kind of did they find a loophole and all that stuff? And so basically what it ended up being was they didn't have any structure behind that piece because they were trying to save, I guess, weight there. And that was just a effect of that, not having anything there. And that piece of carbon fiber was pretty thin. So it was inverting inward. But on the second day, they reinforce that and put something behind it so that doesn't happen anymore. But that was there was a picture of that.
Does that even change? Does that change their speed or anything? Because if it doesn't, then I'm would I reinforce it?
Yeah, I think really, I don't think it changed anything or did anything for them, but I think there's probably a concern there of however many times that's going inward and outward. Is it going to crack?
Yeah.
Is something going to happen to it? Which that then would probably be an issue.
Yes.
So, yeah, so they went ahead and fixed that. It made me super nervous, but on the first day, there was a couple teams that were porpoising, and Ferrari was, and I was oh no,
here we go
don't
again.
do this to me. But I think it was just a setup issue where they had the car, the ride height, you know, and so they adjusted that. And on the second and third day, there wasn't issues with that. They were able to run a ton of tests. They did a lot of laps. Both drivers said that they had gone through all of their run plans. They did all the tests they wanted to do and that everything was looking really positive.
Okay.
Fred Vasseur was real positive about what he was seeing. And I'm so glad that he's the principal now. He's got this dry sense of humor.
Oh, does he?
That I really appreciate. So one of the announcers or people reporters had asked him, well, how do you expect to beat Max if you don't have a number one driver? And he was because I have two good drivers. So I don't know if that's a dig to Checo or him just being I don't need a number one because I got two good ones.
Don't ask me that question.
Yeah, right. So he is funny. Their vibes seem to be really good and happy. And I think Charles had after the first day, he kind of had some there was pictures of him where he looked like he wasn't super happy, but I think it was having to do with those porpoising issues that they had at the beginning and all that, and which seemed to be
not strategy
fixed up and cleared.
The team issue. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
So overall, thumbs up for them.
Solid.
Looked good. Okay, moving on to Mercedes. Mercedes had a rough testing.
Oh no.
I know. And
Toto
so they
did not be happy.
They did not. There was not good vibes going over there.
So
they seemed unhappy. Okay, so generally Toto, Lewis, George, they all kind of had comments that they were making that the car is not where they had hoped it would be.
In terms of speed?
In terms of like speed, performance. So on the second day, George had a red flag because he had a hydraulic problem. And like that caused them to miss pretty much like the last hour and a half of that day because they could not get the car back running. Yeah. So that was an issue. On the first day, they didn't really have any crazy issues, but they weren't looking like great.
But I wonder if this plays back into when they had their launch. And remember, we told like you guys that they were supposed to have a video come out in the afternoon showing the car running.
Testing.
But it never happened.
Right.
But I'm wondering now if this is playing hand in hand.
Yeah. Well, so, and I think, they did have some engine issues then. And then they were clearly having engine issues during testing. Okay. But then people were kind of torn on like, is this them trying to like not show what they all have? Yeah. So there's always that. But to me, it seems like...
Yeah, within a degree, right? Yeah. Like, if they clearly all seem frustrated, there's something bigger going on.
Right. Where there's smoke, there's fire.
Exactly. Who said that? I think it was Zach.
Yeah. On Drive to Survive, yeah. But another thing, too, so George got interviewed, and he had some pretty, like, interesting little tidbits during this interview. And they were joking around. This was all, I was watching on F1 TV. And he actually did this interview barefoot. Because, like,
oh god,
he was wearing socks. But the announcer guy said something to which I was like, oh my god, that's a great like little analogy. But so he did this interview barefoot, and the announcer was saying that like there's a proverb of like when a barefoot man speaks, like he can't tell any lies because he's gonna step on his lies and they'll like cut his barefoot. So like, and it was like a totally made up thing, but he's like, I think he's being really honest in this interview. And so some of the stuff he was saying was, again, like they didn't have, the car wasn't where they had hoped it would be. Yeah. For one. And then two, he was talking about they're going to be bringing upgrades that are already like planned upgrades, which all the teams bring upgrades throughout the season. Yeah. But he specifically said the 6th race. So it's like he already knows like that's when the upgrade is coming. Yeah. And he also made a really good point, which I hadn't thought about, that this season is so heavy towards the middle and the back end on like the calendar. Yeah. Because this front end, there's not as many.
China.
Right. We're missing China. Breaks. There's breaks there. So like you have a couple races in March. There's like, I think 1 or 2 in April. Yep. And then there's a huge break there.
Yeah. You got summer break.
Right. Yeah. Well, no, that's not even summer break. That's like the break from where that Chinese Grand Prix was supposed to be. And it's now basically like a spring break for them. But that's not like, so during summer break, nobody can work. They can't do anything. They have to take that time off. But this break that they now have in the spring, that's not
in a car.
Yeah, that's not like any kind of regulated time period. So I think that Mercedes is planning on bringing a lot of their like upgrades and different things that will be improvements for them towards like the middle to the end of the season.
Okay.
So he kind of led on about that. So we'll see. But I think like they said, just all in all for them, I don't think they're where they had hoped they would be, but they have plans to improve.
Okay. So fair enough.
Alpine, moving on to them, they kind of were like just there, in my opinion. Like they didn't show anything special. They did have some porpoising issues with Ferrari on the first day.
Okay. Well,
maybe they seemed to fix that.
Maybe Oscar made the right move then.
Yeah, maybe he did. But I don't know. I mean, they were kind of just there. Like nothing really exciting came out from them. Their times were just meh. They did.
Okay.
Not that they did the second to last most amount of laps. So I don't know. They were kind of just there. Like, even the commentator people were like, oh my God, like, what's going on with them? We're not sure. Yeah. So it might be bad and it might just be
good. Or maybe they just
fine.
Like, kind of what they did this season. Right. They just kind of snuck in there.
Right. So we'll see what happens with them. Okay. Now, moving on to McLaren. And McLaren, I want to say, is probably like the biggest loser for me during this whole testing.
Oh, no.
They had some issues and it was real sad.
So, okay. I think this also is a big year for Lando because I think if McLaren cannot produce a car for Lando, he's going to start looking for another.
Oh, yeah. I think so. I think so big time.
You know, and they've even kind of talked about it this year on Drive to Survive, but I don't blame him. I think Lando is a pretty good driver.
He's a good driver.
When they had a really good car, not last year. I think it was the year before.
Yeah, in 2021.
Yeah. He did well.
He did.
So,
and I think he has a lot of potential. And I feel like you said, I mean, this, like, probably to him too, he was like, okay, this is the year, like, they have to give me a good car.
We have to figure this out.
Yeah. And I don't know. So
they had porpoising issues.
So they didn't have porpoising issues. Oh. They had a ton of issues with their wheel brow, which I didn't even know what a wheel brow was, but it's basically like, and we'll put some pictures up of this. Yeah. But it's the little flap that goes over the tire.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
So that piece was not strong enough.
Oh.
And so basically no one like from McLaren came out and like confirmed this, but what people were like hypothesizing was that they made that piece thinner than what all the other teams had because they were trying to save on weight.
Yeah.
But then that kind of backfired on them because it wasn't structurally sound. So they spent a lot of time in the garage trying to like reinforce this just with literally like duct tape.
Oh my God.
It was so sad. Like they were sitting there with duct tape, taping this thing around, trying to put heat guns to it to like make the tape stay. It looked so like just
janky.
Yeah.
And maybe Oscar did make a bad move.
Oh my God. It was not looking good. They spent a lot of their time dealing with this, and so they lost a lot of run time because they were having to deal with this. I don't know.
Just a mess.
It was not good. They did the least amount of laps. Their timing when they were on the track like wasn't great. Oscar looked probably the worst out of all the rookies, I have to say.
But do you think it's the car, or he just... Or maybe it's everything all together?
I don't know. I think it's partly the car. He was the only person during this whole testing that had like a spin out. Oscar Piastri, only one. Everyone else managed to like keep it on the track. He didn't crash.
No, but
he
still
saved it. Like wasn't in the wall, but he was the only person to do a spin out. He just didn't look great. And then I feel like all the announcers were like, oh my gosh, like he's amazing, he's the best, this and that. And like, cause okay, yes, he's won F2, he won F3. But I just feel like he's overrated.
We'll see when the season starts.
We'll see what happens.
Talk is cheap in my opinion.
Yeah. Another thing too that made me sad was Will Buxton. Like they did like a little recap thing after the whole testing. And they were kind of going through like how we are like talking about all the teams. And he said that he saw Lando after that last session that he drove. He was not happy with it. And he walked out of like the little garage area and punched a wall, which he's like, that is not like Lando's vibes. Like he's not like an angry person. So for him to be that like mad, which again, it's like Will Buxton saying that. So like
to be at that level,
we don't know, but yeah,
that's a lot.
Yeah. So he's not happy. He was not happy with this. One thing I do want to talk about with McLaren is what Austin sent about so they're testing out this like rotating ad deal on their car to show all their, because they have like 47 million sponsors and hilarious. So they have too many sponsors to show them all on the car, so they're testing out this like little screen that rotates every like 90 seconds and it shows a different sponsor, and they also are testing one out for the helmet.
Yeah,
but
But how is that going to play into, like, aerodynamics?
Yeah, exactly. And so that was what I was going to say is, like, it seems to me like McLaren is putting more stock into, like, these, like, that's cool. Like, that's awesome. Great.
Winning races.
But, like, let's build a car that Lando can drive.
Well, let's build a car that can compete.
Right.
Or pretty soon you're not going to have any spots.
Right. Exactly. So, I don't know. To be seen, they had a thumbs down. It was a sad face.
Oh,
it wasn't looking good. Okay, so moving on to Alfa Romeo. They had some minor issues at the beginning, but then they looked good throughout the whole testing.
Okay.
I think they've made some improvements. They were able to do a lot of running, didn't have any issues. Joe actually had the top time on the second day.
Oh, wow.
So that was nice to see.
Yeah.
So they were looking kind of promising.
We'll see. Maybe they can move up a little bit.
I think maybe they can move up like a spot.
McLaren kind of falls apart.
Right. Exactly.
So that will be interesting.
Yeah. So moving on to Aston Martin, we already talked about how Lance was out. Yeah, and then Felipe Drogovic drove for him. So he actually caused the first red flag of the testing, but it was like a quick,
like just a red flag out and then
back down. So
almost probably should have been like a yellow.
Yeah, but I think during testing, like, because I didn't really see any like yellow stuff.
Yeah.
Like I think they just automatically red flag everything.
Yeah.
But so he within the first like 9 minutes of the testing, like the car just like stopped. And so that was really alarming. And they were showing Alonso and he was kind of like, shit. Like,
yeah.
I just moved over here. But so I don't know what that issue was, but they fixed it really quickly. And then they didn't have issues like after that. It was fine.
Okay.
And so everyone was talking about that they look the best, like out of like they look to have made the most improvements out of all the different teams.
Okay.
So they're pretty much being slated as like the ones to watch. Some of the people that were like commentating on this were saying that Aston Martin can be a threat to Mercedes, Ferrari, and even Red Bull. Like they were seeing seeing really good things. Yes.
And when push comes to shove in the season, what's going to happen?
Right. But
because you can't be doing things like Lance did in Coda.
True.
To be competing with Ferrari. You know?
True. So we'll Mercedes. See.
Like, come on.
But I felt like just given the information that was basically shown during testing, I was like, is Aston Martin ahead of Mercedes? I think so. I think so.
Again, testing is one thing.
I'm going to buy that yellow hat I was talking about.
I know, it's just a very different thing in actual race day. So
yeah. One interesting thing. So Felipe, who we think is probably going to drive for Lance during this race, he did not get to drive during an afternoon session, which would be like really important because the race in Bahrain is like 6 p.m. local time. Yes. So
sun's coming down.
Yeah, sun's coming down. Part of the race is in the dark, pretty much. Like obviously they have floodlights.
Yeah.
But so he only drove 2 morning sessions, and then Fernando drove the rest of the times.
Okay.
So he will, if he ends up driving in this race, he will have not driven it in the dark, which is kind of true. Yeah, we don't know if he has in the past and all of that.
Yeah.
So that might not be great for him, but we'll see what happens. And then there was also a rumor going around that Aston Martin was in talks with Seb.
I know.
To see if Seb would cover for Lance. And they haven't rolled it out.
I mean, I don't know. That's what they need to announce soon. I mean, we're like, what? A week? Less than a week away.
Less than a week away.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hope Felipe Drogovic gets the opportunity. I think he would do good. He won F2 this last year.
Again. She's
not into it.
No.
I like him because he's Brazilian. Okay. So we'll see what happens with them. But everyone, like overall, they get the most improved award.
Yeah.
From after testing.
Okay.
So Haas, we already talked about their small pit wall.
Yes.
That was a topic of conversation. But as far as the drivers and how the car looked good, and both of the drivers looked good. They both said they were comfortable in the car.
Okay. I really hope they move up this year.
Yeah, I think they have the potential to move up a couple spaces.
Yeah, as long as they can keep focused and keep out of the wall. And
I think they have 2 solid drivers. The car looked good. Yeah. They didn't have any issues as far as like losing time and reliability problems, nothing like that.
Nice.
Okay, so moving on to AlphaTauri. And the AlphaTauri, like, I do want to say that I like the car more now that I see it on track.
Okay.
And one of the things that I really liked about it is that those little Chinese stars on the tires.
Oh, yeah.
When the car is driving, it almost gives it like a little cartoony vibe. Like, do you know what I'm talking about? When you used to do those little flip books when you were a kid? It kind of gives that. So I did like that. I wanted to call that out. But there was more rumors this week going around about AlphaTauri being sold again.
Oh.
So that's interesting because if you remember, we talked about this on our AlphaTauri episode. We did. And I am a huge proponent of like, they are going to sell this team.
Yeah.
Because it just doesn't make sense.
Oh, yeah.
Why are we having
it? Who is Andretti wants to get in?
Yeah.
I bet you if something is, I bet you.
Yeah, I can totally see them selling off this team. Yeah. They can put the AlphaTauri logo on the Red Bull car, call it a day. Why are we spending all this money?
Exactly. And you're not really getting the drivers out of that team. Like, I think they really were hoping.
Right. And then you still have your Red Bull driver academy, whatever thing. Like, I think they can accomplish the same thing
without having
the team. But so that was something interesting. I think too, kind of feeding into those rumors, their results during testing were kind of meh. Like, they were like,
I think they're struggling.
Another one that was just kind of there. Like, they didn't have really great times. Yuki did have some good times, but nothing like
out of this world.
Yeah. So, and then Nick looked good. He looked solid. Yuki even said that Nick's feedback that he was giving, like after doing his driving to the team, was like the best feedback that he's ever heard, which is kind of funny because it's
it's like a slap to Pierre.
I know, and then also to himself, like. But only Yuki would be like, "Oh my god, he's so much better than me!" Like, poor him,
poor Yuki.
But he did have some good times again, and I hope he makes those improvements because I don't want to see him leave.
I know, he is my number 5, so
yeah. But okay, so out of like, even though they looked kind of meh, they did actually complete the most laps throughout the whole testing. So they didn't have any problems where they were like sitting in the garage trying to fix stuff and do whatever. So they were running, they were doing their thing, but it's kind of under the radar.
Okay.
So remains to be seen. And then lastly, Williams, which I thought Williams looked really good.
Well, like, they've got a new power unit this year.
Yeah, they looked good. The car looked great. I thought Logan did a really good job.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, so he drove straight through the second day.
Okay.
And during that day, he drove pretty much 3 Grand Prix distances.
Oh, wow.
Like, it was a lot of laps that he put in.
Yeah.
And then on the third day, he was doing a lot of media and, like, just interviews and stuff. So I watched some of that, and everyone was, like, asking him, how do you feel? Like, oh, my God, like, this is your first time in F1, and you just drove
3 races.
Yeah, 3 races yesterday. It was, like, over 8 hours. Like, that's a long time. And he's like, I feel great. Like, he's like, I feel pretty close to 100%. He was talking about how, like, he's done all of this, like, training and, like, workouts and things, like, to gear himself up for this. And that's all helped him. And, like, again, he looked solid. He looked good. Albon looked good. I think they can move up.
Oh, well, I hope so.
This year.
I hope. They had a rough year last year.
Yeah. So I think that it's all there. It's kind of all aligning. So I'm predicting they move up at least a place.
Okay.
So, but yeah, that was it for testing.
A lot kind of happened, but again, talk is cheap.
Right. Well,
next week will be the deciding factor.
Yeah, I think officially, like, we'll know what everyone is packing, basically, like, on qualifying.
Or I
don't think they'll bring it all out during practice.
But you might see if the improvement, because they're not going to hold back 100%. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
we'll see. It'll be interesting.
All right. Well, let's move into our season predictions.
Yeah. So, having digested all of the season testing, all of the signs, all of that information, we are going to give our rapid fire season predictions.
All right. Let's go with question number 1.
Okay. First question on everyone's mind. Who is going to be the driver's champion?
I think it's going to be Charles this year.
I say Charles too.
I think it's going to be tough, but I think it's going to be Charles.
Yeah, I think it'll come down to like one of the last races, which will be great and exciting. But I'm hoping it's Charles. I think he deserves it. I think he's worked really hard, and I want to say it's Ferrari's year.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. Okay.
So driver's champion, Charles for me, Charles for Courtney. Second place, I say Max.
That's an easy one.
Yeah. Okay, so constructors, going with all of that, I'm thinking it's Ferrari's year. It's Ferrari's year.
That's what I'm thinking too. I mean, we've made the change on principle.
Yeah.
We have a new strategist.
Yeah.
The car hasn't
blown up.
No, but that's what I'm going with. Or I'm hoping.
Yeah, that's what we're both hoping.
Yeah.
We're going to manifest this.
Okay.
I have a candle lit downstairs. Okay, so Ferrari for the constructors. Second place, Red Bull.
Yeah.
Red Bull.
It's going to be Ferrari, Red Bull.
Yeah.
One of those two.
Right. One of those two we're hoping for the Tifosi. To pull through. Okay. Spiciest teammate pairing. So I'm going to say, I have 2 written down, but I think I'm going to go with Max and Checo.
That's what I'm going with too, because I think, I don't know.
I think there's some bubbling
but at the
emotions.
Same time, they extended Checo's contract last year.
Yeah.
I don't know.
But we know that Red Bull does not care about a contract time frame.
Yeah, they'll pay him out.
They will 86.
Okay.
Move on to the next. But, okay, so my second place for that, because I had 2 written down, was Pierre and Esteban. I think they fully hate each other.
Oh, I totally agree.
I think they fully hate each other, and now it just remains to be seen, can they control that hatred, or will it bubble up and explode?
Oh, I think it's going to bubble.
I
think Pierre's too salty to not.
Right.
Like,
I know. So. I think they're both French. They both are emotional. We'll see what happens. Okay. Should we do the Latifi Award last, or should we?
Last?
Okay. We'll skip that one for now. Best rookie. I'm gonna say Nick.
I'm gonna go with Logan.
Okay.
I'm gonna go Logan. I feel like
I want it to be Logan.
I don't know. I feel like he might be able to pull it out. And especially Williams, it sounds like they had a really good testing. Like, I don't know. I'm going to go Logan.
Okay, great. That's great. I'm happy for that. I think it's going to be Nick, just because I feel like Nick, while he hasn't been in F1 before, like full season, I think he's just more experienced.
Yeah, but I questioning the car.
Same. So okay, one of those two. It's not going to be Oscar.
No.
Notice how neither of us chose Oscar. Okay. Who will not be on the 2024 grid? Either they retire or they get replaced.
2024.
Yeah, so who are we not going to see after this season? So I am going to say one of the Haas guys. I think either Kevin or Nico will get booted.
I think it will be Nico.
Yeah.
I think they're investing more in Kevin.
I think so, too.
And Kevin's stepping his game back up.
Yeah.
And I think, like, he had a kid. I think he's moved his head has kind of moved.
Right.
Like.
Yeah, he's not as emotional as he used to be.
He's not such a hothead. He's getting more focused. So I'm going to say it's Nico.
Okay. I'm going to agree. I'm going to say it's Nico. I think that Haas will pick up one of these young whippersnappers.
That's what I think. And I think this was just a holding.
Right. It was just a placeholder until they could figure out, like, who do they want to put there.
Exactly.
So that's what I'm thinking. Okay, best teammate pairing. I'm going to say it's Charles and Carlos. I think they get along. I think they're good. I think they work well together as teammates.
And they push each other.
Yeah.
And they're both fighting for the number one spot. But they're not mad at the other one. Right. They're mad
respectable.
At themselves. No, but they're more mad at themselves. Like, if they didn't get it, it's because they could have
done something more. Yeah. Mm-hmm. See, last year I would have said this was Max and Checo.
Yes, but
now there's problems brewing.
Yeah.
Okay, most improved team in 2023. Based off the season testing, I'm going hands down Aston Martin.
Yeah. I kind of think maybe Williams though too.
Okay. Yeah.
Because Williams has a lot to be able to improve on. I feel
that
like
is
Aston
true.
Martin did well last year, so I feel like their margin of improvement is probably going to be able
smaller.
To be less.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to go Williams.
Okay.
I'm shaking it up.
We'll see. Okay, most improved driver in 2023. So I chose this one based on who I'm hoping is most improved, and that's Yuki. I feel like he has a lot, like he needs to mature, he needs to show up and be able to perform consistently.
Yeah. I guess I can go with that. Yeah, that's a hard one. There's a lot of rookies, and so I feel like that's hard for me.
Right.
So I'll
so we'll see. Okay, surprise wins. I'm thinking that Fernando Alonso will pull out a win.
Oh, 1,000%. I feel like he will. Multiple races last year. He was so close.
Yeah. I think he will. I think their car looks good. Yes. I think he has a lot to prove.
Yes.
And I think he's going to just power through and pull out a win.
Yeah. I would agree. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. I would love to see him win another race. I think that would be exciting. Okay. Surprise podiums. I'm going to go with either Bottas or Zhou. I think Alfa Romeo will get on the podium this year.
I think it's going to be someone from Aston Martin.
Okay.
Surprise podium.
Okay.
That's going to be...
Like a Lance? You think a Lance?
Or... So I just think... Ooh. I think they potentially have what it takes to pull out a number 3.
Okay.
I think the car does.
Yeah. You know what would be a really good one is if Felipe fills in for Lance this next weekend and gets on the podium.
Ooh.
That would be good.
That would be interesting.
That would be. Okay. Craziest radio messages.
I have no earthly idea.
I'm going to say it's always going to be Max and Yuki.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you're saying person. I thought you said, meant phrase.
Oh, no. I was like, I have no. Like, the person that's going to have the most
Oh, that's easy for me. It's Yuki.
Yeah.
1,000% Yuki.
Okay. All right. So, now we're getting to the exciting ones. Let's start out with a cold take.
What?
A cold take is like a prediction that everyone predicts that. Like, it's not like it's very obvious that that's probably going to hold true.
Oh, I think my cold take is that this will be Yuki's last season in F1.
Really? See, I feel like that's more of a hot take.
Well, what you said that everyone thinks is going to happen.
Right.
I think everyone knows.
Everyone's predicting that?
Yeah, because I think it's like everyone knows either Yuki performs or he's out.
Or he's out. Okay.
It's
okay.
Very open, public.
Yeah.
Like,
that's true.
Yeah.
Okay, so mine is that Nico Hülkenberg maintains his record of most starts without a podium.
Okay.
I don't see him getting on the podium.
No.
I see him consistently scoring points, but he's going to be getting 10th place, 9th place, 8th place. Like he's not going to pull anything out more than that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now, moving on to a hot take.
Which means nobody.
Yeah, this is a crazy, hot take. So mine, I don't know if mine is, so much of a hot take.
I think mine is that Ricardo takes Checo's spot mid-season.
Mid-season, okay.
Potentially.
Yeah. Okay, so mine is...
I don't know. There's too much around that I'm
So mine is that McLaren's going to be terrible which we've already kind of seen. Lando is going to be done. He's going to break his contract early and go to Red Bull and replace Checo.
Oh, okay. See, we're on the same
That's
page,
my hot
but
take.
different.
Yeah. So basically, we both think that
always talking. About Lando.
Christian's always talking about him, and he's actually offered him contracts like on 3 different occasions, I think. And Lando has not accepted.
Because I think Lando had a lot of faith in McLaren.
Right, he did. And he's a very loyal person.
And Christian talked about in Drive to Survive, he was like, potentially Lando could be available.
Yeah. And there was, so Lando on his little quadrant, his esports thing, they did a little video recently, him reacting to his like time on Drive to Survive. And they showed that clip where Christian was like, Lando's a good looking guy and very talented.
Yeah.
And blah, blah, blah. And his friend that was doing the video with him was like, oh, come on, Lando, just sign the contract already. And he just like kind of laughed. And I'm like, he's going over there.
Something's going on.
He's going over there. Because if McLaren doesn't pull it out for him, he's not going to stay.
He's not going to stay.
Okay. So... drum roll for the Latifi Award. And this award is basically the driver that we feel like is going to be causing the most havoc on track.
Slowest,
getting lapped, always in the way, blue flags being waved, going the wrong direction on the track, because he did do that. Crashing into people for no reason.
I already know.
It's the Latifi Award. Okay, you want to go first?
Yeah.
Who is it?
Sorry, Yuki.
You're giving it to Yuki?
It's Yuki
for
me.
No. Okay.
Because I think the pressure is going to snap this year for him.
I could see that happening.
Yeah, and he is always crashing. So that's
and he always is crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I like Yuki, but sorry.
Oh,
yeah, that's who.
I'm over here giving him most improved because I'm just trying to manifest for you. Okay, so mine is going to be Oscar Piastri.
Really?
I think Oscar Piastri is so overrated.
Oh my god!
And I think he's just going to come out of the gates and just like
cause havoc,
crash into things, be running off the track, spinning out.
Oh god!
McLaren. I don't think he's gonna do well.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Not a huge fan.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay.
But so that was. I mean, yeah, we'll see. That was our thoughts on a lot of different things today.
That was recap. We went through Drive to Survive.
Right.
We talked about preseason testing. Right. We talked about our predictions this year. Ending it with a Latifi Award.
That's right.
So, I mean, we'll see. So, tune in for our next episode.
Yes.
We're going to be discussing
Bahrain. Yeah. First race. It's coming up.
Literally 4 days away from, first round of practice.
Yeah.
And, so listen, tell us your thoughts, what you think. Do you agree with us? Did we miss something in Drive to Survive or preseason testing?
Right.
We're always happy to hear from our listeners.
I know. And love it. Please reach out.
Yeah. Tell your friends.
Tell your friends. Tell your mom. Tell your brother, your sister.
Your grandparents.
Everyone.
Set it all up for them. So you can listen to us where you listen to any of your podcasts.
Right. We are on Spotify and YouTube with video. And then anywhere else you get your podcast if you just want to listen.
Yeah.
We're on Instagram at Queens of the Paddock.
Yeah. And you can catch us on Twitter now.
On Twitter. Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So
it's been fun. And Alex, you want to wrap it up for us?
Sure. So this has been Queens of the Paddock and F1 Podcast. My name is Alex.
And I'm Courtney. And lights out and away we go.
Yay. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
F1 time.